Welcome to Quantum Revenue Expansion, where we keep you motivated, inspired, and thinking big. Up-leveling into quantum revenue is a choice that we can all make in any moment, and then continue to make that choice to stay in that space each day. On this podcast, Ursula will share revenue growth strategies to reach your next level and introduce you to CEOs just like you who are making it happen. What's your next quantum leap going to be? See it, own it, and take that first step. If this is you, then Ursula wants to invite you to join us at the next 2X Intensive now. Go to salescoachnow.com/apply. You are listening to Quantum Revenue Expansion with your host, Ursula Menchez. Let's go.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Quantum Revenue Expansion, where we turn your annual income into your monthly income. Super excited that you're here today because I have the amazing Melanie White, who I love, and she's beloved by our community, and I know you're going to love her too. And today we're talking about creating 8-figure growth as a 4th-generation CEO, which Melanie is. And Melanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you with us. And I know this is going to be a conversation that is going to help so many business owners in terms of thinking about what it really takes to expand to that next level, how to show up as a CEO at that next level, and all the things that go with it. Before we introduce you though, really quickly, for our listeners all over the world, first of all, thank you. Thanks for hanging out with us. I love getting your emails. I love getting your messages. We appreciate you so much. If you haven't yet, go to ursulainc.co. We have our free gift for you. It's our Quantum Revenue Expansion Masterclass. And during the course, we do a couple things. First, we look at your quantum revenue container. Is it big enough? I just had a client yesterday close her first $10,000 package as a healer. And for those of you who are healers out there, I know that sometimes, asking for more money can be a big deal. She closed her first $10,000 package. And what I want everyone to think about is that wouldn't have happened if she hadn't expanded what she was asking to bring in, as well as her pricing and her packages. So just a little nudge out there to be thinking about that. So we talk about how to do that in the masterclass, talk about how to really up-level your prices, your packaging, and your marketing. And we also at the end talk about how to collapse time and reach your quantum goal even faster, which actually Melanie is doing right now. So I'm excited about what she's going to share on what that can look like. Also, a couple other things. My team wants to make sure I always get all the pieces in. If you're feeling the pull to work with us, you've been hanging around in our circles for a while and you're wondering what the 2X Intensive is all about, you can go to ursulainc.co/apply. Send us a little bit of information about your company, and my team will send you information and set up a time to chat with either me or someone on my team to talk about how we could help your business grow as well. And finally, if you haven't yet, please leave us a review, and it helps other people see if the show is a fit for them. Plus, when you do, we have a gift for you. Come back and leave your review also at ursulainc.co/giveaway. And we have a digital copy of One Great Goal for you, along with the audio process to follow along with. So we hope that there's a little gift to say thank you for leaving us reviews. And for those who have left reviews recently, we appreciate you. Super grateful because it allows people now from, I think, over 100 countries around the world and growing to find this podcast. And with that, I'm excited to tell you about Melanie. Melanie White is CEO and 4th generation, which I find pretty amazing, of Hellwig Products. The automotive suspension manufacturing company was started by her great-grandfather and grandfather in 1946. So cool. Melanie joined the team 15 years ago, and listen to this, as she has risen in the company to CEO, she has been able to influence more growth to the tune of this. The company will triple in revenue this year from 12 years ago. So congratulations, Melanie. And you, as the leader of a multi-million-dollar company, are one of the few female CEOs out there doing this job. So props to you. And I'm excited to really have this conversation from the perspective of what it's like to be a female CEO in the world today, who right now in the middle of, this continued pandemic has continued to see, this 8-figure growth, tripling your income over time for the company. So tell us, let's just start with your story. You must have been, when you were a kid, you were watching the company, watching Hellwig Products, learning about it. Did you know you were going to be CEO from a young age, or what was this journey?
No, I didn't. So it's interesting. I never thought I would be even involved in the company. So well, that's not true. At one point I had this like dream I was going to run the company, and I had no idea what that meant, right? Like I think it was when I was like 10 or 12. And then I went on a more traditional path. So headed down like a teaching path, and then really fell in love with psychology. And so started down that path. I was looking to do postgraduate work like marriage and family therapy or something like that. And then at the time I was working for a bakery, and I really wanted to try outside sales because they'd have outside sales reps come in, and I thought that's a cool gig. I love helping people. I want to do that. And Hellwig needed an outside salesperson at that time. And it was cold calling, right? So I don't know if you've never done cold calling, it's a perfect way to like cut your teeth, but it's grueling, and you have to be okay with getting told no. And I learned quickly I had to know more than most of the people that I was coming into, right? So like it's automotive suspension. So I really had to like figure out like how to talk about it to a different audience, right? And how would I talk about it to people that knew it and didn't know Hellwig? So it was a great way to start in the company, but it also was grueling. I mean, there would be times I would do a lot of sales calls about an hour away, and I would like cry the whole hour home, like because people, just one in particular, like at the time I had red hair, and he like just thought it was really fun to like make fun of my hair, and I was like,
Oh my word.
personal. So yeah, so I just learned to like also like let things roll off my back a little bit more. So yeah, but I also fell in love with my customers, and that was really where I saw the opportunity within the company and to be able to grow it too.
Yeah. So interesting. I'm laughing and said some things I didn't even know. Like we've known each other, I don't know, for about a year now, less than a year, maybe.
Yeah.
I didn't know we both worked in a bakery. That's hilarious. And then
Yeah.
I didn't know you were interested in marriage and families. That's what my master's is in. And then you were in outside sales as well. I feel like we were living a parallel life.
Yeah, seriously.
Bakeries, by the way, not good for my health. Like I was not one of those people who could not eat the donuts at the end of the day. I was like, oh yeah, I'll take them home. Not good for me. But anyway, they were really tasty. So I'm laughing inside about, not laughing, but feeling your pain and a little bit laughing. But the whole cold calling thing, it is grueling. It is brutal. And unless you've made, 100 cold calls in a day or whatever the number is and been out pounding the pavement, like you haven't really been in the world of selling. And so, we have people who listen who are still out in the field, making cold calls. And I'm sure you're still doing some selling, but I got to ask, like when you look back on your sales career and what like, and I heard you say you love your customers, what's your best advice about selling? Like, what did you learn through all the blood, sweat, and tears?
Yeah, I think really what I learned was be knowledgeable, right? Like go in and be knowledgeable, but also be curious. Like I would go in the beginning, I would go in and be like, you need my product, blah, blah, blah. And then what I learned was, hey, what do you do here? We're all under car parts. So like, do you do exhaust? Do you put on a rear differential on the axle? If you're doing any of that stuff, that's in my like area. It's also maybe someone that tows does something like that. So then they need my product. But like, if I wasn't a fit, if it was like, oh, we only do this, I'd be like, okay, great, thank you. Like if you ever get into anything else, here's, my information, but I wouldn't waste time. So I got really curious about what they did and what they might need. And then I would also break down, what does selling my product mean for you financially, right? Like you usually make this much margin if you're adding it on to another product you're already selling. And that was the thing that I learned, is that it was easier to do like do you want fries with this kind of hit, right? Like, so I would like coach and teach, and we still do this to this day. Like we coach people on how to sell our products, but adding on to stuff that is already really well known, because the sway bars and like what we sell is typically not like the first thing that comes to mind. So if you're doing other products in that area, it's easier to like upsell, if that makes sense. So we really like broke that down, and it's kind of fun because we still use it.
That's amazing. And so starting with like, so what you know is the most needed, then upselling from there and adding products as you go along.
But using other brands also that are way better known than we are, because we're a smaller company. And so I think that was another thing that really helped, was we would focus on someone who spends a lot more money in marketing and things like that, right? And like kind of latch on to them and say, hey, if you're doing this like Firestone airbag, like Firestone's a really well-known brand, right? Like you also want our sway bar with that. So that's what we focused on.
Got it. So connecting brands for brand recognition, and then your brand comes with it. I love that. Yeah. I know a company that does that really well called Starbucks, right? I feel like if we can tie Starbucks to anything, I'm tying it to this podcast right now. So I'm curious. So you obviously excelled in sales, outside sales for the company, and you started to grow. So at what point did you start to transition into management? Because here's one thing that I see happen a lot in companies. I'm sure you see this as well with all your circles, is a lot of top salespeople will get pushed into management. A lot of times they don't want to go. It's like not their first choice. They make more money in sales. They have more flexibility. They like the customers, and management might not be their thing. Where I think both you and I experienced that management actually also was a good fit. So it's an interesting combination to be able to sell and then also be able to manage and lead. So at what point did you start, like, did someone pull you into leadership or management? Like, how did that journey unfold?
No, it's interesting. I mean, I'm, fourth generation, I'm now CEO, but I never saw that I would be in this position. I had the boss that I had at the time, she thought that I should be the secretary.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
Because you're a lady.
She was like, I think that's a really good fit for you. And, so it was interesting. So I had all of these like dynamics that kind of wanted to keep me small, right? Like, and so I was fighting against that experience, and but I knew there was something more, right? I just like had this like internal knowing in my being that like there was an opportunity for more within the company. And so what I really saw, and I didn't realize I did this until I want to say like last year, I kind of like, I had an interview and I had put pen to paper and I was like, how did I get to here? And what happened is I always saw a vacancy, like a need within our company, and I'd feel that need and then I'd ask for the title. So I saw us in sales. We already had a sales manager. And so I knew going into like a sales management role wasn't going to be, it wasn't the best fit, and it wasn't what Hellwig needed at the time, right? So I went into marketing, and I knew that we needed to like have a bigger message. And so I saw that gap, I filled it, and then became the marketing manager. And but I would like fill that role and then say, hey, I'm doing all of these duties, I now need this title to go with it. So I had like marketing and sales director, then I moved into VP, and then I was VP for a really long time. And then finally I was like, I'm doing all of the president roles, I need this title to go with it. So so that's how my trajectory worked.
So I want to pack that for a second. So if I'm hearing you correctly, Melanie, no one handed you the CEO title on a silver platter. It wasn't like this was like this, you were born and like, here's the plan for Melanie. It was like you liked being in the company or loved being in the company. You liked the customers, you liked the product, and you saw a need, you filled it. And then you did something really important. I want to make sure our listeners hear it, because I know some of our listeners are maybe inside of family-owned businesses, maybe inside of other corporations, or maybe just creating their own career track in their own company and for others. But you asked for what you wanted.
I did. Yeah.
You asked for the title. And I think for a lot of women, that doesn't happen. Some guys as well, but especially women, they don't ask for what they know they deserve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it probably took me longer, right, to ask for that. I was filling the position for much longer than I got, and then would feel confident enough to ask for the title. But yeah, I did ask for sure.
And I think that's a really important piece. And so you saw, and then at some point you saw the CEO role and you're like, well, that president CEO, that needs to be filled. That's next. And you identified yourself, you asked, and now you're in that position. And I have a feeling that your family is really glad you're in this role.
Yeah.
For most of the family. Like, I'm sure there's lots of family dynamics, but I'm sure
family dynamics.
The company is so lucky that you are in this role and fortunate that you saw the trajectory, you saw the opportunity, because a lot of family-owned businesses, as we know, struggle or have other challenges. And we've known each other, and I know one of the conversations we've had is about how important becoming a woman-owned business was for you. Can you talk about that and why that was important and kind of what that also shifted for you in the company?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a definite benefit, especially in automotive suspension, to be woman-owned and woman-owned certified. So to be woman-owned certified, you'll get certain contracts and things like that. So I knew that would be where we were heading as a company, right? But also I knew that would be a strategic move for us as well. So, you don't just win all of the contracts because you're woman certified, right? You still have to be a legit business, do quality work and all of the things, but it does get you a seat at the table. And that's what in a lot of areas, like just that alone, right? To be considered is huge because there's a lot of competition out there. So that drive to be a woman owned really like set up a lot of things for me. Like you have to be 51% owner, so majority owner. It also, you have to have your salary be the most paid in the company because they want to know that you're real. So they come in and investigate, like, are you legit? Because it's such a benefit that a lot of people in this world will not be legit. And so they have some workarounds, like maybe it's a wife that does it, but she doesn't really run the company. She comes in like maybe once a month and signs some stuff where it's funny. I'm like, oh my gosh, I definitely run the company, but to prove that there's just a lot of like hoops to jump through. But what that did is like really clearly set like a certain timeline and also like goals for me of like where I wanted to be. So it kind of forced a path, if that makes sense, because we knew that was a strategic opportunity for us, but at the same time, it forced our hand in making the move with ownership and all of the other things with that.
Yeah. And I think that's just, really important. That I love what you said about how it also kind of forces other things to happen in the company that are also healthy for the company, but also healthy for you as the leader of the company. So really quickly, in case someone's listening, they're like, what is woman owned certified? Do you want to talk about that really quickly? And who I think you went with WeBank, or who helped you through that process?
Yeah, so I'm in the middle of my WeBank certification. I think I'm like 97% done, but of course, there's just been so many like different documents and things I have to find, and we've been in business since 1946, so it has been interesting. But I've learned a lot. It's kind of forced me to learn a lot. But what that certification is, so WeBank is the one I'm working to get certified through. It establishes you as a minority-owned business. And as a minority-owned business, there's a lot of just opportunity for you to be considered in government jobs, military, even in the original equipment world, like the Freightliner custom chassis, Ford, companies like that. Like it matters to have this certification. So they have goals internally that, like, we have the high-speed rail that's coming through, and I know the number on that. There's 11% of the jobs or the businesses they do work with have to be minority owned. So to do that though, you have to then, right, like they have to consider a lot of minority owned companies, because 11% of that job is huge. Like we're in the billions right now for that high speed rail. So, and it's just like right down, it's that way. That's why I keep pointing.
Right. Gotcha.
So in California.
Awesome. Yeah. And we'll put the WeBank information in the notes in case people are wondering like what that's all about. So we'll keep that, we'll put that in the show notes. So all of this is happening, right? Like you're doing all these great things, getting the women-owned certification completed, your, the income is tripling really, I mean, over 12 years, and really you're kind of on this 2x path right now, which is significant. I mean, it's an 8-figure increase. It's significant. And you're doing this, let's talk about this. Like, I think it's so important. You're doing this in the middle of COVID, still in the middle of, I don't even know if we're in the middle of it. Maybe we're at the end of the pandemic. Let's start saying that, right? Like maybe we can shift it. And one of the things we always talk about in our CEO groups is how when you're taking a quantum leap in revenue, a lot of things can go upside down. And you've had your share of setbacks, challenges. We're not going to get into all the things. It doesn't matter, but you've had your share of like more than your share. Let's say that this year. Mm-hmm. And here you are. And for those, who are watching this on YouTube or listening, they can tell from your voice as well. I mean, you always strike me as this a very Zen, grounded, calm, like you're just you present in this space, and you do that because you have to, right? You're the CEO. Mm-hmm. I'm curious if you're willing to share, Melanie, like, how have you been able to continue to grow at this pace and this projected pace while in the background, like it's the pandemic, like, all this other stuff, like there's all these things going on.
Yeah. So I won't lie, in the beginning of the pandemic, March 19th was when California announced that they were going to go into the stay-at-home orders. And like that overnight, I had my sales went to like a trickle, a super small trickle coming in. And then at the same time, we had like 2 or 3 of our biggest customers asked to cancel all the POs in the system. So it got scary. So I was in a swirl. I was not like, I wasn't handling it very well. I wasn't sleeping at night. I was like working 14 to 15 hours a day. I'd like come out and eat dinner with my family because I was working at home at the time, and I'd then go back into my office at night. So it was intense during that time, and just all the new regulations and the laws, and like we didn't know what it meant. Like, were we a essential business? And luckily we were, and so we had a lot to work through in the beginning, but I had, and this is where I think like your network is really important. And I belong to a group, and one of the members of the group called me and said, I will always be grateful for her, because she said, I see you're struggling. What is the biggest fear that you have right now? And it really like helped me see that like leading from a place of fear was not serving me. Like, she held up the mirror and it wasn't pretty, and right, all of that. And so that really helped me like bring me back to earth. And then, okay, you're right, like leading from that position is not helpful. So I have an opportunity to approach it differently. And I think at that point too, which is really interesting, right? So when I decided to change my behavior and not be so dang fearful, and like, I know I was spreading that too, but like we had this huge influx of orders that came in. Like, I want to say it was like the next day or two, and we were like, the biggest sales day we've ever had in our company came in, and we were like, we don't think that's true. And then the next day we had like an even bigger day. And like, so like in 3 days, we had booked in sales what we would normally book in a whole month. And, wow. And we were like, are we ordering to this? Just all of the different things, because we had like cut back our inventory and purchasing and all the things, because we thought, yeah, we were going to have to like minimize instead of grow. And so we were like, oh, we don't know if that's real. So but luckily it was real, right? So this huge bubble came in, which was great. And then it continued. So luckily people went into, spending more time towing trailers, working on their vehicles at home and things like that, which really was helpful for us. And people started to buy our products, and you can just see that demand. Hindsight is 2020. At the time, I'm like, I wish we knew it was real, right? And trusted that it was real, like that was now going to be the trajectory, because we would have ordered differently and things like that, and not gotten behind. But that's we learned from it.
Yeah. So how do you think shifting your fear allowed that to happen?
Yeah, that's what is it the shifting of the fear that like allowed that to happen? And maybe, right? Like maybe that was the thing, but I think also by shifting it, I was able to see things more clearly, right? I was able to like wipe my slate clean and like, okay, this is a gift and we'll take it. And, well, sometimes my team is like, because we have so much demand, they'll be like, oh, we just don't know what to do. And like supply chain is ridiculous right now. And there's like a lot of complications. But I think that going back to March of 2020, and that what we all went through is like we're not there though. Like, let's deal with the demand. Let's deal with like the supply chain issues and things like that, because we are so lucky to have that demand. But I think being able to like shift from fear really did allow me to see things in a more positive light. And just like, it's amazing. Like there's magic that happens in a lot of ways. And I notice that when I'm in this like stuck fear energy, I can't see it. And I just don't recognize it for what it is. And when I can clear that, I do see that there's magic, and also like people want to help me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing that, we feel like we're doing everything like on our own as CEOs, and like the higher you get, which no one talks about this, the higher you get within a company, the lonelier it is. I had a friend who runs a business, and she's such a wise person. I just have so much respect for her. But she called me the other day, and she just said like, hey, can you talk? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And she had this problem that she needed to talk about. And she's like, no one understands, but I know you will. And so we talked about it. And at the end, she was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to sleep better tonight. Thank you so much for taking that time. But I think that's the thing that happens, is we like just get more isolated as we rise in our positions, and having that network is also like really helpful. And knowing that people do want to help you, like when you call them, that made my day, like being able to help her too, where I think sometimes we don't realize that it's also beneficial for someone else, right? Like when yes. she's talking about the issue that she's dealing with, it's also beneficial for me to like, have that mental exercise. Mm-hmm. And so I think the thing that I would want people to know is like, don't be afraid to reach out to people. Like, and if there's someone that's a friend, a mentor, something like that, they want to help. So, and just know that like in your core that people want to help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Such a great reminder of that, as CEOs, we can feel very alone. It's very isolating. And of course, the bigger the company and you have a lot of employees, it can feel like they need you to be the happy, focused, positive CEO, who's also setting rules. I feel like it's so much like being a parent sometimes, right? Like you're, just holding that space for them. And so let's talk about that for a moment. Like, how do you how do you take care of yourself? You talked a little bit about it, networks, mentors. How do you take care of yourself like professionally and personally, so that even if you've had a rough week or a rough month, or like what do you do to keep going and, stay in this space?
Yeah. So I think it's really important, right? So I have had this goal. There has been so much happening lately that my biggest goal has been self-care for a month, right? Like, just, I don't have any other goals. It's just, how am I going to take care of myself? Because there's a lot of other things that are moving in the right direction. I don't need to like focus on that, but like me showing up and how I'm going to be is really important. Like, weirdly, if I don't eat right, it really throws me off. Like, there are foods that I can eat that just like, if I have them for lunch, like I crash after them, I can't focus, and different things like that. So I've done a lot of like exploring in that area to make sure, like, am I eating right?
Yeah.
To be in that like that headspace, to be able to be focused. And I used to think it just like, oh, I'm just tired, but it wasn't that. I needed to eat and feel my body and my brain. And then I think exercising is really important. I don't always love to do it, so figuring out tricks. I just started working out with a trainer because I just needed that accountability to show up. So that has been really important for me. And then, yeah, I mean, I do work. I'm not afraid to work with therapists, right? Like, either, because I think mindset is a huge thing. And there's just things, I say this often to my husband when I get mad at him about something. I'm like, I'm really mad at you about that, but I don't know that all belongs to you, right? So I think there's a lot of things that we bring to our, like, even at work, right? Like, when someone says something, it's a trigger that, like, oh, maybe they think I don't know what, do I belong here? Do I belong at the table? Like, I think especially as women, like, those are things that swim in our heads. And so it's doing that work to help, like, clean, old programming, old information, to be like, no, I do belong here. And this is why, right? Versus like letting that trigger or that like thought process get legs and grow.
Yeah. Good. Thank you for sharing and just highlighting. We forget like how important the food is that we eat, and what we drink, right? And like how much caffeine, or how much, how does that affect your body? And paying attention. For some people it doesn't. And for others, like, we can be really sensitive to things, and at different times. I think we can be at different times sensitive to certain foods or certain things we're drinking. Exercise. I love the accountability piece for sure. Like, it's not always easy, but like, how can I stay accountable? Because we know we feel great. And I'm glad you said therapist. I mean, you were studying marriage and family, and I think, as you know, we talk a lot about mental health on the show, and we're in a time of a mental health crisis, in my opinion. And so for people who are listening, like, there's just so much help. Like, if you need help, ask for it, like, really, really get it. And in my family, we pay attention to it on the regular. I've had a therapist in different ways for years, just to keep it clean, and then a coach, and like, just lots of different support to stay in that space. So we didn't quite talk about the numbers. I want to make sure we talk, like, you are, the company's tripling their revenue this year from 12 years ago. And in that, like, it's almost a double sort of in that time. Like, so, and this is an 8-figure increase. What would you say to CEOs who are listening? Like, what has helped you the most to really lean into what I would call this quantum leap that you're happening with your numbers, in spite of like all the things that have gone on?
Yeah. So I think that's the fun thing, right? Like, I don't have this like, oh, we got this like number in our head and this is where we're going. I at one point, I had this like very clear, like, we can be bigger. We can serve more people. Our products, make a better, safer driving experience. Like, how fun is that? Like, let's focus on getting more people to have that experience. And so it wasn't even like, this is the number we're going for. It was just like, let's grow. Like, we can do that. And I remember just a lot of people, there was this idea like that just grow $1 more than the year before. And I'm like, oh, that's not fun. Like, let's make this fun. Like, let's make this really challenging. And so there was a lot of times where I wouldn't even realize like, oh, we grew significantly in this time. Like, we once did business with Amazon. We don't anymore. But like internally, like to do business with Amazon, it's super complicated and it really got us out of our comfort zone. But I was like, we should do that. We should figure out how to make that happen. And we did. It wasn't, the right fit for very, very long. And then, but like we learned so much in the process. So just like really challenging like the status quo, like, yeah, we haven't done that before, but like, how can we do it? And I thought that was really fun. So I love like just seeing like, can we do things? And then when we can, like, that's really rewarding. And yeah, so that part has been really fun.
So there's two pieces, and I just want to like, so on the one hand, there's a number, but you're not attached to the number. Is that what you're saying? It's like you have this would be great. And also like, it's more about serving our partners, client, or customers. Is that accurate?
Yeah. And I think also like, I mean, we have core values as a company. So like it's safety, team, and fun. Like we want to be having, and I think the part that, most, who knows, I wanted to have fun in our core values, because I thought like people spend a lot of time here at work, right? Like you spend a huge majority of your life at work, and there was an opportunity like, how can we bring more fun into this atmosphere? And we do things like bring in ice cream trucks and taco trucks and do like giveaways and different things like that each month, because it's just like, how can we incorporate fun? And then it gives us the opportunity to all be together.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key, right? Like there's also fun. There can be fun in growing and like getting out of our comfort zone too. And like being able to look back and go, oh, holy heck, we did that, right?
Yes.
Like we didn't think that was possible, but we did that. I remember working with a consultant, and we had like, our process was like 9 days to get a piece of a product through our system. And we got it down to 2 days. And it was like, that was super fun for us to like realize like we could accomplish that, right? And we did that like all as a team, all together. And that's, I think, what excites me. So is always paying attention to like what's fun, what excites me, what excites my team, like where do we like get the most joy? And like that's where we would focus. And I have an amazing team, and like people will come in, and it's just like what we have here. Like I don't think about it like very often until it gets reflected back. Like I will get reminded like by people that anyone new that comes into our organization is like, is this real? Like, do you guys really like have a good time? And this is like, really, we get treated this way. So that is exciting for me too.
Yeah. So really living your core values, your mission, your vision. And I think that's an important thing that we can forget, like the importance of like really nailing that down and then living through that. And what does that look like, and really tying in with your team. So we could chat all day, Melanie. I love knowing about what you're up to and what you've done in the world. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you wish I would have, or anything else you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah. So I was given this advice when I was younger. I want to say it was probably about 10 or 12 years ago. But I always, because I know a lot of your listeners, not all are women, but like a lot are women, right? And I'm in a super male dominated industry. There, not only are there not very many CEOs, there's not very, that are women, there's just not a lot of women in this industry. And one of the things I remember talking to someone and saying that, that being a woman, it makes things difficult. And he said, he's like, I have to stop you. You can't go on with that thought. It's not being a woman that is your issue. It's probably your youth. So if you can be prepared, so show up, be the most prepared in the room, and do not think about that being a hindrance for you. And when he did that, so, being young at the time, like I did see, okay, that could be a hindrance. Like, but there's ways to work through it, right? And then at the same time, I started, like, it helped me shift that being female was actually really to my advantage. I'd be at trade shows and people would remember me because they might not remember my name, right? But they'd be like, you're that woman from Hellwig, and because there weren't a lot of us there. And so I think changing that, just that like story, right, that I was telling myself is like, it's going to be hard because I'm a woman, was actually, it still happens. Like, we joke about it as a team because I'm the CEO, but most of my sales team is male. And like, at a trade show, they'll come up to, a salesman, and they'll ask them the question, I answer it, but they look at them and, it's like, and then they ask, so even though I'm answering it, they're still looking at them and they ask them the next question and then I answer. So it's just this weird dynamic. Like, it doesn't happen that often, but it still happens. But I think not allowing yourself to like go down that road of that story is really important, and just not allowing, like that you believe, if you do believe being female is a detriment, then it will be true. Right. And that's what I very clearly saw earlier in my career. But once I saw it as an advantage, I really was able to take advantage of that too.
Awesome. That's a great reminder for our female listeners and really everyone, and just the stories that we tell ourselves that can become the beliefs, and then we can live from that space. So as we're wrapping up, I'd love for you to share your website and where people can find you. And then, like, who do you work with? Who are your customers, partners, et cetera?
Yeah. So we have, our website is hellwigproducts.com. We can be found on Instagram, Facebook, all under Hellwig Products. I am on LinkedIn. That's probably where I'm the most active, and Melanie Hellwig White there. And if you are someone who tows a trailer, has an RV, we make sway bars, helper springs that will make your driving experience safer and better, more enjoyable. So.
Awesome. And we can find those on the website as well, or learn more. Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. Melanie White, thanks for being on the Quantum Revenue Expansion podcast. Loved having you today.
Thank you. It was fun.
It's fun. All right. For our listeners all over the world, thank you so much for hanging out. I'm sure you loved this conversation with Melanie as much as I did. We will see you next week. In the meantime, make this your most epic week yet. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for joining us today. And if you are ready to make your next quantum leap, let's do it. Ursula invites you to join us at the 2X Intensive. Go to salescoachnow.com/apply. Don't forget to leave us a review on your favorite podcast app.